Hello, this is Tarah Talks, and today we have, let me see here, conflict-free salary negotiation in technology. Let me pop this back over. There we go. All right. I am Tarah Wheeler Van Vlack. I am the CEO of Fizzmint. This is an HR automation company here in Seattle. I am also one of the co-founders and a board member for Hack the People, which is the world's largest tech mentorship initiative. I take mentorship very seriously, and I want, by the time we're done today, for you all to think of me as one of your mentors. I broadcast these talks every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and you can see all of the past and future talks at thetarah.com/Tarah Talks. I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes. You can see the little QA application in the Hangout, and at any point from now on, you can ask questions to me, and when I start the Q&A portion of the talk today, I will answer them by order of whichever ones are the most popular. I also get questions via email and Twitter, so I'll answer some of those as well too. Okay, let me pull this back up again. There we are. All right. Today is conflict-free salary negotiation in technology. Normally, I'm drinking very, very caffeinated tea, but this is such a fraught subject, I'm actually drinking something herbal at the moment, believe it or not. This is stressful for me even thinking about it sometimes. And at this point, I'm often on the other side of the salary negotiation situation. So why am I talking about this? Why do I care so much that you have the ability to negotiate your salaries well in technology? As many of you know, I was a contractor for many years in technology, many years. Come on, I'm not that old. And I ended up going on lots and lots and lots of interviews, and that meant that some of those would lead to job offers with salary negotiations. Because I was a contractor, this happened much, much more frequently than most people who would be doing full-time job interviews. I would be negotiating my salary or wages on a contract once a month, or maybe even less time than that. So I care because I see that there's a way to do it well and that a lot of people are very frightened about doing it the wrong way. The other major reason I care is if I have to give any one single place at which the gender pay differential happens, it's at the single moment at which you are offered a number by a company and women tend to say yes or no, or yes, I'll take it. And men often tend to say, let's start negotiating. That is the single biggest place where people can make a change in the way that they live, in the gender pay gap. That's minute zero right there. So here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to talk about the way you present yourself during salary negotiations. I'm going to talk about the difference between partnering with the person you're negotiating with and fighting with them. And then I'm going to talk about the emotions you feel and how to mentally prepare yourself for the situation that you're going to be in. Finally, I'll tell a couple of stories to help illustrate these points and give you some suggestions for what you can do to figure out how you're going to handle your next salary negotiation. Remember that as we're going through this entire talk, the whole purpose of doing this is to reduce your fear level. It's a frightening thing to negotiate salary. You're at what you feel is a really vulnerable position in the job application process. You've gotten an offer, you know they want you, and now you're trying to figure out how much you can get them to pay you. Maybe you're just thrilled that they offered you the job and you'll take it at any price. No. The first simple rule for today is whenever you hear a number, you say not yes, you say that's a great place to start. All right, that's all you need to say right then. That's a great place to start. That's really it. You can vary it in almost any way you want. Sometimes I say, that seems like a reasonable number to begin our discussion at. I assume stock options are included. So just blank face and start right there. That's it. Okay. When we talk about the way that we present ourselves, there's often a way to look and to act and to seem in a salary negotiation that's going to make you seem more effective and more valuable to the company. So we'll talk first of all about presentation. Your dress. This is not the time to wear something that is uptight and uncomfortable. You need to be relaxed and loose. And the reason for that is you want to express very comfortable body posture. I'm going to get up just a little bit here. Make sure that your shoulders are, that was a nice pop, thrown back. All right. Keep your chin up a little bit. Breathe. deeply 3 or 4 times before walking into a meeting where you're going to be discussing your salary negotiation. When you sit in the chair, do not lean forward agonizingly and stare straight at them and go, No, instead, lean back a little bit. All right. If you're wearing pants, you can kind of kick your legs out a little bit in front of the chair and go and lean back in the chair. Adopting a physically relaxed body posture will help you to feel relaxed. Second, and more importantly, it convinces your partner in negotiation that you are totally relaxed about the situation. This not only chills them out, but also makes them sit there and think, wow, this person's completely relaxed. They have no fear about what's going on here. They must have plenty of other offers. That is exactly the mindset that you want them in right now. Okay. Stay calm and keep your attitude as level as possible. Okay. And one PS on this one, the salary negotiation time is not necessarily the time to bring up requests for additional benefits when it comes to things like daycare, off-site childcare, or on-site daycare, child support allowances, flex time, things like that. Have those discussions with the HR department after the salary negotiation's done. Second of all, let us talk about, I'm going to change the order of this one. I'm going to talk about emotions first, and then I'm going to talk about partnering versus fighting. And a lot of it has to do with the reason I'm making this switch is I want you to think about the way that you are going into this negotiation. The stress level that you're experiencing when negotiating a new job should be somewhere around the stress level that you feel in negotiating for a new car. It's actually a pretty accurate comparison. Negotiating the price on a used car or a new car, I mean, if you're looking for a job and you're at entry level, you're negotiating for a used car, is very similar. You have stakes, you want to save money or make money, and the person that you're talking to wants to be there for you, wants to make this happen just as much as you do. So be aware of your emotional state. If you make this mean everything to you, it's just going to get frightening. So take a deep breath. Think very clearly about your emotional state walking in and know in advance that you're going to be just fine. The main thing people experience in these situations is fear. A lot of that fear comes from the fact that you think that they will withdraw the offer if you are not compliant and quiet and okay with whatever they hand you. Very common to see this among women in technology. And I don't know how many of you realize just how hard it is to find human beings who want to work for you in technology. Trust me, they're going to try hard, much harder than you believe, to keep this negotiation going. Once you've been signed off on and they know they want you in the company, you've got a lot of flexibility there. At a bare minimum, you can start negotiating with them and be totally comfortable in the notion that first, they expect you to negotiate, and second, they expect to end up at a number higher than the one that they originally offered you. Do not forget this. So be aware of your emotions. Use them. Be calm and try to remember that you've got more options than you think you do, and they want you much more than you know they want you. Okay. Partnering versus fighting. This is my favorite way to completely take conflict out of negotiation for your salary whatsoever. And I'm going to relate it to the way that you negotiate when it comes to the salary caps. What will often happen in a salary negotiation is you'll sit across the table from someone and they will say, we have an amount that we're thinking of, and then you say, okay. And hopefully they haven't tried to force you into saying a number first. Never say a number first. Always let them say the number first. They'll say something like, we'd like to offer you $78,000 a year for this web developer 1 position, something along those lines. And that might be a W-2 price. It's probably somewhere around a junior web developer's price in Seattle. And you stop and you say, so it's $78,000, and they say yes. And then you say, and repeat it with me, that sounds like a great place to start. I'm assuming there are stock options. And then they start wondering what has just happened, because after all, you started negotiating with them, and this might not be something they expected if you're female. And then they start talking about stock options that are available. You say, how did you come up with the $78,000 number? And they say, well, we looked on Glassdoor or careers.com, and we found that that was a market average salary for a web developer. If they say the words market average or this is an average salary for someone in this position in our company, That is the moment at which you can turn the entire negotiation into a friendly situation where they are working with you to make their company better and you happy. What you do then is say, so this is an average salary for somebody in this position. And they say yes. And you say across the entire career, across the entire subset of tech companies with this position, they say yes. And you say, is this an ordinary or average company? And they say, of course not. We're extraordinary. We're amazing. We're everything you ever hoped. We are everything, and we tie our hair with rainbows in the morning. And you say, but you only want to offer an average price. Do you think I'm average? And are you impressed with my skill set? Do you want to bring me aboard your company? And they say, absolutely. And you say, well, then I guess we've established that neither your company nor I am average. So how do we make this team a great place to be by getting me on board and by making you all happy at having an extraordinary company? That's how you turn the entire thing into a team exercise with them. You say, I want to work with you on this. Your company's not average. I'm not average, or you wouldn't want me. And I love being here. I love seeing the people that I'm around. I want to see this happen. And you say, so let's work together. That is verbally what you do. The physical thing you do is stand up, walk around to their side of the table, and sit down on their side of the table. If you've got the ability to do this, that is a very powerful nonverbal signal that you've joined their team, you've joined their side. Instead of sitting on the opposite side of the table from them, you pull out a piece of paper and say, oh, I got a couple of ideas about how to make this work. Sit down on their side of the table and get side by side so that you have this feeling like you're colleagues, right? That's something that non-verbally they'll respond to, and they don't even necessarily know why. They'll find themselves offering more than they intended to, giving you more stock options than they intended to. That is how you turn a salary negotiation into a conflict-free situation. This isn't about you fighting with them, ever. It's about you wanting to join an extraordinary team and them never, ever wanting to admit that they only want an average developer, okay? So the last piece of this is going to be a couple of quick stories. And the reason we're going to do some of these stories is so I can illustrate what happens both when you do and don't take a partnership approach like this. One example of a time when I did not negotiate in the way that I could and should have was one of the first jobs that I ever took in technology. It's one of the first jobs I ever took as a front-end web developer. It was at a large company, and I was working through a vendor agency. The company, there's a whole long story on that. Just go ahead and go to thetarah.com and you'll be able to see some of the stories that I've posted about what it's like being a vendor in tech as well as a contractor and a full-time employee. And I heard the first number they gave me, which I can't tell you, but assume it's half of what you might expect for a web developer. Now, of course, I know better. And I said, that sounds great. Oh my God. I probably lost out about $35,000 to $50,000 over the year and a half or so of that contract. That's a lot of money. And that right there was the giant mistake that I made. Always start with, that's a good place to begin. That's the only thing you have to do to probably automatically make them raise their offer by 5 to 10%, no matter what. One of the next stories I have is a great company that I got a chance to work with. I knew in advance I was going to take less money than my normal hourly fee for doing development and systems architecture for them. And it was because these were amazing people and I wanted the chance to work with them. And so rather than negotiating at all for salary negotiation, at this point they knew that I knew what I was doing when it came to discussing pay rates. Instead, I said, look, we want to make this situation happen. And I know that you folks, that you don't have a lot of money right now. You're in a startup situation. I get it. So what I'm going to do instead of negotiating at all with you is just say, come back to me with the best possible price you can. And at that moment, we're probably going to say yes. But, and that was it. That was all that I did. I said, I want to work with you guys so bad that I just want you to name your price for me and know that it needs to be as good as you can possibly do because it's going to be under market rate. So to keep me as long as possible, make that happen. And it worked. It worked great. They're happy. I was happy. It worked wonderfully. And that's a great way to be conflict-free as well. When you want to work in a situation, but you don't want to have a conflictual relationship from the very beginning. And, oh yes, one of the major reasons that people don't negotiate on salary is, like we've mentioned, fear. They don't negotiate because They're afraid of getting called a bitch is what they're afraid of, honestly. And I will tell you right now that in a salary negotiation situation, unlike every single other situation I've almost ever been in my real life, no one has ever called me a bitch. And the reason for that is they want you much more than you realize. You don't know how hard it is to hire somebody, to get sign-offs from multiple people. Oh no, it's much harder than you think. They want you there and they will negotiate with you. And yet you're afraid of conflict. Don't be afraid of the conflict. They're not going to get mad at you. They're not going to scream at you. They expect and will respect your negotiation with them. Okay? I have never, no, I take that back. One time I heard of somebody who did not get a job after they began the salary negotiations. Not because of them not being able to meet her price, but because someone's sister was hired for the job instead. Can't fight nepotism. What are you going to do? There's no conflict really in this situation. Stay calm. Take very, very deep breaths before you walk into the room. Okay? Never name the number first. Okay? Remember that you have very little to be afraid of here. They're more afraid than you are right now. And I know that that sounds very familiar from camping trips while you were young, but trust me, they're more scared of you than you are of them. And that's because you have probably most of the power in this situation, at the bare minimum a 50-50 split. Okay? And always remember, whenever you hear that first number, that sounds like a great place to start. What about stock options? That's about it for the prepared material that I have right at the moment. I've got about, this is one of the big ones. I've got about 10 questions that came up during the emails and tweetings that I've had over the course of the last week. Ow, hot tea. And so I'm going to start in on those. Remember that as you're watching here, and I know we've got viewers from YouTube and in the Hangout itself and such, but if you click on the Q&A application to ask me questions, then I will answer those right now. I'm going to start with some of the questions that I've gotten via email, and I pulled a few of these up to begin with, and I sometimes get a couple of extra ones as I'm doing this. But one of the very first questions I got was, when is the right time to bring up childcare? Well, first of all, congratulations on not having brought it up during the job interview at all. Never bring up things about your personal life during the job interview situation. So your instinct is right that you start somewhere after you get the job offer. That is true. So here's what to remember about asking for benefits that identify things that may make you seem like you could be expensive or not as dedicated. Asking about things like, is there overnight parking here? Sometimes I stay late at work. Is the benefits equivalent of, well, my real flaw is that I really have tunnel vision and work too hard. So, you know, that's a little bit of a cheat. What you want to do when you are discussing childcare is you wait until after you do the basic number of salary negotiation. You get, for instance, you go from $78,000 in your negotiation to $93,000 in stock options. At a large company here in Seattle, that's not only reasonable, it's probably somewhere around average at this point. So now you've got that number. Gosh, it's a little warm in here. Possibly it's just that I stuck with the hot tea since the weather turned here. It's ridiculously hot in Seattle. I signed up for dark skies and rain. I did not sign up for 83 degrees, warm and happy outside. Cinderella's birds are flying outside my window right now. It's horrible. So what you do after you have that number is then you go to the Human Resources Department and say, what has been laid out in terms of my benefits for this situation? Maybe it's a startup and so you've got very few people to ask. If it's a very small startup, they're not going to have anything set up for you already. If you are asking about benefits that can be added in terms of your salary, then make sure and get a basic number from them and then say, and then let's go ahead and have a conversation maybe over email about some of the benefits that you've offered. I'd like to continue the conversation and talk maybe about things like bus passes or flex time. This is now the time you can talk about it after you have the number that you're both happy with for the salary and the stock options. Once you've got the money down, this is where you start to begin to maximize the benefits that you get on the side. An excellent benefit that I once negotiated for that just kind of came out of the middle of nowhere was they offered, oh yes, the company I was going to do like the 6-week contract at offered free parking in their garage. And the parking garage sold monthly spots for $125 a month. It was an expensive benefit. And instead I said, actually, I ride the bus. Could I instead ask for a free bus pass? Just spend that money on a bus pass for me instead. And so I got a 3-month unlimited bus pass out of the deal instead of a useless benefit. Because I was talking at that point to the VP Finance, and he just said, because he was the one I was negotiating benefits and salary with, and he said, don't see why not. Seems reasonable to me. Contributes less carbons to the atmosphere. And I went, swell. That's the kind of thing that maximizes your money that you actually get to take home. You don't have to spend money on a bus pass that way. Another excellent example is what kind of benefits they may offer in trade with other companies around. Things like, are you paying for our gym memberships? Oh, well, that's awesome. Is there a family care option or a family additional option on that? Maybe you all want to go. So keep a good look at what benefits those are. When it comes to childcare, this is a sensitive issue because what you don't want to do is say something like, well, my kid's going to be with me all the time. 60 hours a week, they're going to be in work-related daycare when the average amount that other people have their kids in that daycare might be 30 to 50 instead. That means that you're going to be more expensive than them. Make sure that that benefit area is pooled in what you're doing. How to ask about childcare is a delicate situation, and it's going to be unique to most situations. Be aware of something again. They still want you. Don't be scared. They want to see, even if they're not, they still want to seem like they're friendly to kids. And you will have gotten this sense in advance as you were going through the process if they actually are friendly. I'm assuming at this point you know better than to take a job at a company where you've never been through the offices and seen them before. If you have dogs and you want to bring them into your workplace and hang out with them, and you walk through the entire place, it is a gleaming temple of metal and technology and not a stray hair in sight. Everyone's in button-downs and there's not an animal around. Probably a good indication that they're not going to be okay with you keeping your puppy around. So you'll get a feeling as you go through. The second thing I got as a question was, how am I supposed to know what the basic salary is for my position when it's not named on Glassdoor? That is also a very good question. We make titles up. Oh, shoot. We make titles up all the time in technology. Oh, wow. Do we? I make titles up. It's fun to make titles up. I've invented great titles like communications facilitator and just all manner of titles. They don't really mean anything. So instead what you do is you ask yourself not necessarily what that title is. You say at what level in the company I'm going to be. There are really about 4 levels in a tech company. You can split them up more. You can go less. Microsoft has like 25 different variants on your pay grade starting from 60 on up. It's pretty common knowledge. I've not been a full-time employee at Microsoft. I was always a consultant or a contractor for them, and as a result, most of what I know is just stuff I've seen on blogs. So I know there's a zillion levels of pay grade there. At some companies, there's only one pay rate. Everybody gets the same salary. So the real question is, what are the titles of the people who are going to be working around with, for, and above you? If you are someone like a developer or engineer, then you are starting somewhere at level 1 in a tech company. If you've gone to the level of some kind of management like dev lead, or maybe a little higher like dev manager or technical program manager, that's a level above that one. The level above that one is going to be basically all of the people that aren't in the C-suite. That's going to be people like the directors, the principal architects, the software architects, the major product designers, art designers, those folks. And then right above that comes basically the C-suite, or the people who own the company. So there's really only about 4 levels. Ask yourself which of those levels you're on. Get a feeling for which of the people might make a good average for your salary, and then just do the average of those salaries. If you're coming aboard and they want you to be the dev wrangler, that's not a title, that's a thing on Glassdoor. But if you're dev wrangler, you're pretty sure that you're somewhere around level 2 in a tech company. You're not up at the directorial level doing architecture or, developing the product lines for the company. You're also not just at the dev level or the engineer level. You are at the level where you are helping to wrangle teams of people. That's pretty clear you're at that second level. That's a good way to get an average on what you're doing. The next level. I wanted to bring this one up a little bit later because this one is the worst possible situation you can imagine. And in fact, this conversation is pretty relevant given what happened to Jill Abramson this last week, who was fired from the New York Times. I'm going to give it a 95% because she was female and found out that several of her direct reports who were males and hired after her were making more money than her. And given that the adjective pushy was applied to her as she was booted out the door, it's very hard not to read a gender-based attack in that. I don't know or care what her workplace situation was like, but I know it was a dumb move by the Times. And this question I have here is, I know that there are other people in my department making more than me for doing the same job. What do I do? Oh, sweetie, I know. This is a horrible situation because you have a situation where either you found this out inappropriately, maybe you saw somebody's information or something else, and what you don't want to do, and you've got this fear in you right now that says, I don't want to go and ask them why I'm getting paid less because I'm scared they're going to tell me it's because I'm not worth as much. I'm not as good. I'm not as good a developer. First of all, bull. That's not the case. Second of all, probably nobody has noticed. You're going to be stunned at this, but most of the time people just don't notice when this happens. What happened was they negotiated and you didn't, or they were hired a little earlier than you, or a policy change went into effect. It's not you. It's not your situation. If you were actually hired at a company that deliberately is paying you less because you're female or you are a minority or something else, you would know because there would be some other stuff going on. It's not like you wouldn't notice it. There would be a culture that would tell you you need to get out anyway. If that's the only time you've ever noticed anything and you're just stunned and the bottom's dropped out, it's probably because no one's noticed. So in the 3% of cases where they have noticed, they don't care, or they're doing it on purpose, get out. Go find a new job. Believe me, I want you. Send your resume to me. I mean, if you're a developer and an engineer, if I don't need you, someone I know needs you. Send it to me. t@thetara.com and I'll handle it, or Tara@fizzmint.com. Believe me. Second, for the 97% of people where it's totally unintentional, here's how you handle this. The first thing you do is you document everything, because in almost no cases is this going to go bad. But if it does, you need to know how, okay? Just keep it for your own well-being. Start the conversation and keep the conversation as much as possible on email, and that is because that provides a written record. Make sure that those emails are not solely on your company server. When I say keep it written, I also mean keep copies of that away from your company server. If you are let go, your email will be erased or you will have no access to it, and after that, you have to go to subpoena to try to get it recovered if it's even possible to recover it. At that point, you're done. So, in the vast majority of cases where just no one's noticed that that's the case, here's what you do. The first thing you do is in your email, you ask perhaps your boss or someone who is, if you trust your boss, then this is perfect. If you don't, then it's a little more tricky. But most of the time, you're probably going to think your boss is a pretty good person. You go to your boss and say, I know that this is something that is completely and totally unintentional. And I want to make sure that you know that I want to work with you to find a great way to develop skill sets and to provide a great workplace here. But it's come to my attention that there's some pretty serious inequalities between some of the salaries on the team. And I'm not going to speculate right now on why that is. Instead, I'd rather just have a conversation with you and throw some ideas at you about how we can fix this. And then you propose something that lets them cover their ass. Stay on them in future about it, but let them cover their ass, because they'll make it easy on you if you do. If I were to notice something like this happening, believe me, I would love a way to make it right as fast as possible. So you tell them, I also noticed that it seems like when I first came aboard, I didn't, here's an idea, give questions, or, I didn't propose a cost of living increase. And there was a couple of expenses I underwent on the part of the company that, I noticed we never found a way to get me reimbursed for, okay? Then you propose a salary that's 3 to 4% higher than the one that you know about, okay? Because there's always going to be somebody who's going to be paid more and paid less. And the information that you get at that point about what's going to happen in this process is going to tell you a lot. You will likely never need to play the girl card, essentially. Someone's going to look at this and go, oh my God, the minority or the woman on the team has just said she's not being paid as much as all of these other guys on this team. Oh crap. Well, she's said here that we can give her this cost of living adjustment, and they'll make it right if they possibly can. First, nobody wants a lawsuit. Second, most of the people you're working with are good people. They don't want to see this happen. I try to be a good boss, and I try to make very, very sure that inequality like this doesn't happen. And yet, when you are negotiating on your own behalf, it's your job to do the best you possibly can. And my job to get work done as best as I possibly can with the right people for the right price. You are going to take care of yourself, and you're going to do a great job doing it. So just that's the secret on that one. Give them an out. Give them an ability to make it right, and you'll often find that the situation gets fixed without you having to do anything else. Okay? And in a more conflictual situation, it's going to get person by person. Just keep the documentation. Keep a witness around if you can't help it. If they try to pull you into meetings rather than talking on email, then you may have more of an issue there. At that point, it's time to start keeping your documentation in order. Ask me if you want to know questions about that. I've seen some situations like that, and I'm more than happy to help. Ask me in private if you want. As you may have noticed, I answer these questions as we go. So, all right, I hope that the Q&A, I hope that the conversation that we had today helps you to develop great conflict-free methods of negotiating for higher salaries in tech. That first part where you're just getting your first offer, just make sure and start with, this is an extraordinary team, and I want to be part of it, and I know you want extraordinary people. I'm not average, you're not average. Let's make this work. And the final part, when you find that there is an issue and you are being paid unequally with someone else, say, it seems like this got overlooked in my original negotiations. Let's go ahead and add a cost of living increase and some help for some of these additional expenses that I have borne on the company's part, and give them a nice fat raise to give you. All right? Most of the time, that'll do it just by itself. We'll look into it, the people who are looking into salaries, and we'll see it, and we'll make it right as fast as possible. Other than that, just take care of yourselves and do a good job. All right, this has been Tarah Talks, and next week I think I'm going to have a conversation about what to wear to, next week is going to be how to fire your mentor gracefully. That again is going to be at Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. And today again has been conflict-free negotiations for salaries and technology. Follow me on Twitter, and you can ask me questions that way too. There's also that new URL, thetarah.com, whack Tarah Talks. All the information's there. Thanks bunches. Talk to you next week.